Hello there. My voice may sound a little bit different this week because I have a cold. Yay for me. This is my first cold in like 2 years and it is putting me in the ground right now. But we are going to persevere because I have something that I have been waiting for months. It finally arrived. I want to talk about it. I want to try it. So we're going to jump right into it. We're going to do it today, right here, right now. But Morgan, you ask, what could you have bought? Well, let me get it. Dun, dun, dun. Inside this bag is something called the Jogo. This was a coffee Kickstarter and I believe I funded it back in like late spring. So it has been a hot second waiting for this little thing to come in. I'm very excited about it. Also, this is not sponsored. I spent my own money on this and I have been keeping an eye on it for a while because I thought we should all look at it. Obviously, this is gonna be a day, I can already tell. But inside, we have a thing. Let me get the thing out. You've probably seen some interesting brewers out there in your time as a YouTube coffee viewer. The most infamous is probably the Bripe or the brew pipe, but I challenge you with the brew straw or the bra. No, not that. No, but for real, we have a brewing straw here. This is what is called the Jogo, which honestly, big missed opportunity to call this the bra. This is something else right here. When I found the Kickstarter for this and read the product description, I was like, there's no way that'll work, right? But now that I'm holding it here in my hand for the first time, I think it might work. Let me explain to you how it works. Now, it is clearly a straw. We have this like silicone end on one. You can like pull it off if you really want to. You have a nice little flat edge there that you could sip from. You have this main body of the straw that is like every other straw. There's not too much to say about that. And then you have the base here, which is not a normal straw base. This in fact has a very, very fine mesh filter. So the idea is that you put this in your coffee and then it's kind of like a reverse French press, if you will. Let me show you what I mean by that. So these are both immersion brewers. That means your ground coffee is placed inside the water completely. It is saturated and it's brewed kind of similarly to how tea is. You're gonna soak the grounds and then in some way you will strain out or press down the grounds so you have a clean, just lovely cup of coffee at the end of it. With a French press, you have this plunger in the center. When you are brewing your coffee, the plunger will be in kind of the up position. You'll have your grounds and your water all loose in the main body of the carafe. Then when you are ready to finally drink it, you plunge downwards, pushing all of those grounds because of this filter that the grounds can't get through. You push all the grounds to the bottom and then you're able to pour out all the liquid that you have brewed on top. The Jogo, however, is similar but not the same. The idea of the Jogo is you put in your grounds, you put in your water, like you would with the French press. But there is no plunging, there's no pushing the grounds out. What you do instead is you stick your straw inside and you just sip from your water and coffee that has brewed together during the process of the immersion. Now looking at this, there were a couple thoughts and potentially concerns that immediately came to mind. First of all, the fact that you are drinking hot coffee out of a metal straw. I imagine one would not want to touch the straw when they are drinking because I think this is gonna heat up quite a bit. I don't know, granted we still have to brew with it, but that was one of my initial concerns. The second being that this little filter sitting here at the end better do its job because I believe since you are drinking from such a very concentrated point here, any grounds that make its way through the filter and get up through the straw, you're really gonna taste them. Like you're gonna feel that texture very quickly. Basically like how clean is the cup of coffee gonna be? And lastly, something that just came to mind is that, is there gonna be like over extraction happening? Because we're not like removing or pressing down the coffee in any way. The grounds of coffee are still gonna be sitting and extracting in your cup as you drink from the Jogo straw. Like, can I get through my cup of coffee fast enough for it to not over extract and get any of those kind of like more bitter, like over extracted flavors? I think we should find out, question mark, because maybe you have that concern. All of that being said, I am very excited to brew with this. I need to also get some tissues. So while I go do that, I want to give a huge thank you to the sponsor of today's video.
I want to give a huge thank you to Native for sponsoring today's video. When you work 9-hour shifts on your feet in an active environment, it's pretty important to have a deodorant that works right alongside you. I wanted something that had a comfortable formula, easy application, and works well for long periods of time. For me, Native hits all those requirements with their aluminum and paraben-free deodorant that has a smooth, quick-drying texture. I've been a huge fan of their eucalyptus and mint, as well as their lavender and rose, but you all know me. My all-time favorite scent of theirs has to be the oat milk latte. But even if none of those sound like the fit for you, they've got even more great options to choose from. Native also has a variety of body washes and toothpaste that could be great stocking stuffers because somehow that season is rapidly approaching. Now, 3 deodorants are usually $36, but if you use my link below and code MorganDrinks, you'll get them for $24, which is 33% off. You can also get 20% off any body wash or toothpaste. Again, click the link below and use code MorganDrinks. Thank you again to Native for sponsoring today's video.
It does feel a little bit like my head is about to explode right now. I don't know if coffee is gonna help, but there is water in coffee, and I imagine that can't hurt. No one take advice from me. I am not a medical professional in any way, and I haven't been sick in 2 years, so I don't know how to deal with this. Back to the Jogo though, let's look at the rest of the things that were included in my my little purchase that I received from the Kickstarter. You have a lovely canvas carrying bag. You have, of course, the Jogo, and there were a couple different like silicone tip color options. I chose the, I believe it's like the teal color. You have a little instructional / informational booklet, and then you also get a cleaning spoolie. This is very important. I cannot emphasize the importance of cleaning out your non-plastic straws. I cannot tell you how many absolutely disgusting metal and glass straws I've seen in my day, so irregardless of the Jogo, if you have a non-plastic straw, please clean it. But also thank you, Jogo, for including this. In our instruction book, we have instructions. Inside it says, step 1, for every 5-ounce cup, add 1 rounded tablespoon of medium to coarse ground coffee to your mug. We'll be using weight rather than tablespoons, but good instruction. Number 2, pour hot, although not boiling, water into your mug and stir with your Jogo. Number 3, let the coffee brew and cool for at least 4 minutes until preferred strength and temperature is reached. And 4, add milk and or sweetener if you would like. Take a small test sip and enjoy. And then kind of in parentheses it says, as you sip, you can also close the tip with your teeth to control the flow. Got it. Besides that, there is just kind of like some information about the thing. So it has an ergonomic design, big word, big fancy word. It has a BPA-free silicone tip right here, stainless steel, micron metal filter, seems straightforward enough. Let me get some ground coffee. I think grind-wise, I have to treat this as a French press because that seems like the most comparable form of brewing. So I have here some nice coarsely ground coffee. I'm also gonna use a clear glass so you can just really see what's going on the inside. Also, for anyone concerned, I've already cleaned and washed this, so we are good to go. I need hot water too. Oh my God, I'm everywhere today. In almost all of Jogo's marketing, this is advertised as being a way to brew coffee when camping or in the wilderness. Say you bring some ground coffee, you have some water boiling on a bonfire, and then you kind of assemble it together. You don't need to lug any other equipment or your AeroPress out. You just have this thing and that does the trick. And as much as I'd like to do it for authenticity, I don't think my complex will allow me to build a bonfire in the apartment. I also don't think I should be let out of my house today with as much mucus as I am producing, so we're gonna opt for the slightly more domesticated version of getting hot water. We're gonna use a kettle today. And as instructed, I am bringing it up to a temperature that is under a boil. Still hot, but under a boil. This scoop is for tea, but I'm gonna use it for coffee. I'm trying to think about how much coffee I should add. I think I should treat this amount-wise like I would perhaps like a pour-over. Like we're using a slightly coarser grind than I would for a pour-over. Usually I would use about 20 grams of coffee if I was brewing like an 8-ounce to like 10-ounce cup of coffee like this. So we're just gonna start there. Okay, 20 grams in, and then 1 is just supposed to fill the cup. Okie dokie. Stir with Jogo, and then we wait. I think I'm gonna let this brew for about 3.5 minutes. Then we'll take a little sip and see if it needs to go a little bit longer. I think the main thing I'm interested in here is whether this is gonna be a cleaner cup of coffee than, let's say, a French press brew. Now, a lot of people criticize French press brews mostly because of the gritty texture that comes with them when those fine like particles of coffee will not be caught by the mesh filter and they will float up into your drink and you kind of have like a rougher, like kind of mouthier drink of coffee. Personally, I don't mind that. This is kind of like my hot take. I actually usually like French press coffee. But that being said, I do admit that it is something that not a lot of people like. Most people are looking for a clean cup of coffee, and I think it would be to this device's advantage to provide a very clean cup of coffee. We're done. Hey Google, thank you. I think we need to go about 30 seconds longer. Hey Google, set a timer for 30 seconds. I only had a little tiny sip, so I can't evaluate too much, but I will say that is quite hot. Okay, another 30 seconds has elapsed. Let's have a true sip of our Jogo coffee. First thing I will say, it is very hot. I think I might have burned my tongue a little bit. I have some thoughts, and I'm gonna try my best to explain this. Hopefully you relate to it so it makes sense here. When I am drinking a hot cup of coffee without a straw, a coffee of similar temperature to what we have here, I kind of am able to use my lips as a gauge of temperature as to not, like burn my tongue. I think also I'm able to use my lips to kind of like spread out the coffee so that when it hits my palate, it's a little bit more evenly dispersed, rather than with a straw, you're kind of like sucking up just like a stream of liquid and it just kind of like hits your tongue all at once without any like buffer. I don't know if that makes sense, but I feel like that's how I usually experience drinking coffee. It's a little bit disrupted with this thing. That being said, the coffee that I did have was a pretty clean cup of coffee. There's a tiny bit of grittiness to it. I'd say this is still slightly grittier than if you were brewing like a pour over through a paper filter or even a little bit more traditional metal filter, but still a lot cleaner than I expected. And I would argue that this is a bit cleaner than a French press. I will also confirm you won't want to grab your Jogo by the straw. What a sentence. You will not want to touch the main stainless steel body of this Jogo while you are sipping your coffee. It is very hot to touch right now. We're now a couple minutes off of our designated brew time. We had our 4 minutes of brewing and now we're drinking our coffee. But as we talked about before, our coffee is still brewing. It is still extracting in here. I'm starting to get some less than pleasant flavors in my coffee. Granted, I am not drinking this super quickly, but still, it is very, very hot. It's nearly impossible to drink this very, very quickly. I am very, very curious what the filter looks like on the inside. If we're gonna see any grounds that have been caught or if we're gonna see any grounds like inside the main straw. So I think we will set this to the side. Let us disassemble this and see what we have. Inside, there are some visible like fine particles of coffee that are on the inside of the filter. I just checked they are not on the outside, they have been pulled through. But that is to be expected with like pretty much any immersion brewing. No matter what size you intend to grind your coffee at, there is almost always some like very, very, very small particles that will get mixed in as well. This is why people actually sift their coffee frequently if they are going for a very, very technically correct universal grind size. I actually brought my little grind size chart that I have from Crew down with me so I can kind of show you what I mean. When you grind for a French press, you're going from medium to medium coarse grind. I would say I ground somewhere around right here, so on the larger side. However, when you grind that size, you will still frequently have like tiny particles that are very like dust-like that are over like on this area of the grind setting. Kind of unavoidable to some extent, but that's all that I see pulled in here. I don't see any of those larger grounds pulled through the filter, which is really what you would noticeably taste. And just for curiosity's sake, I'm gonna go back into this one more time and take a sip to see where we're at, a good 5 to 6 minutes out of our brewing time. The drinking temperature is a lot better now. However, the flavor is starting to taste very, very clearly over-extracted. Final thoughts about this. I think they nailed their target customer base, which is people who go camping and who brew coffee out in the wilderness, where it makes 0 sense to lug anything but a tiny straw like this with them. That person is not me, however. I think this is well built. I think all of its components are very well thought out, and I think the mesh filter works pretty nicely. However, if you're more of a home enthusiast and a barista like me, I don't necessarily know if you need to add this to your arsenal because it inherently puts a time limit on how fast you can drink your coffee. Because it is still like a full immersion brew and you're not transferring out your coffee into another drinking vessel like one might with a French press, you need to drink this very quickly because after and this is on the higher end, after about 3 minutes have elapsed after all of your brew time, you're gonna start to get those really, really over-extracted kind of heavy, like bitter flavors in your cup of coffee, which is tricky because you then have to balance that with how hot your cup of coffee is, because the more you let it cool, the more it over extracts. And then it's just like, it's a weird, like there are two things and you need to like sip your cup of coffee in its entirety in this perfect like point where cooling and brewing like intersect. I still think this is very fun. I think for what it is well thought out, it is well built, and I like it. I like having a brew straw. I do continually want to call it something other than the Jogo. I do definitely want to call it the Brox. I think that's funny, but that's just me. I'm very glad I got to try one of these out in person. It's a very unique brewing experience, and I hope if you ever have the chance to get your hands on one of these, you enjoy it as well, because it's kind of silly, kind of fun, and honestly, That's what I want out of a brewer, so I had a nice time. Maybe this is the right thing for you, maybe it isn't. Either way, totally fine. Now, I'm gonna go see if I can make my way through a little bit more of this cup of coffee. If you would like to take a peek at the Jogo, I will link it down in the description below. If you have any other interesting brewers you have seen that you would like me to take a peek at, please let me know because I would like to take a peek at them. I'm gonna go find myself some more tissues. I'm gonna go lay on the floor for a little bit, I think, and I'm gonna go try to recover a bit because I don't think coffee was the best choice for me to have right now at this moment. I will see you all next week. I'm Morgan Drinks Coffee on all the platforms that I'm active on. You can find me here once a week, or you can also find me on TikTok and Instagram pretty much every day. I hope you all have a fantastic rest of your day, and I will see you next time. Goodbye.